Welcome to circles and circle equations. The standard form of the equation of a circle with its center at the origin is x squared plus y squared equals r squared. R is the radius of the circle, so if we take the square root of the right-hand side, we'll know how big the radius is. Notice that both the x and y terms are squared. Linear equations don't have either the x or y terms squared. Parabolas have only the x term that is squared, or only the y term, but not both. Let's look at the equation x squared plus y squared equals 9. Remember, 9 is r squared, so if you take the square root of it, r is equal to 3. The center of the circle is at the origin, and the radius is 3. Let's graph this circle. Center is at the origin, 0, 0. Count out 3 in all directions since that is the radius, and then go ahead and sketch in your circle. If the center of the circle is not at the origin, then the equation for standard form of a circle looks like this. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. The center of the circle is at hk. Please remember when we were doing our transformation, what was h? What was k? Okay. Find the center and the radius and graph of this circle. We have x minus 3 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals 16. Notice the h and the k values. And this is r squared, so r is equal to 4. So the center of the circle is at 3, 1. Notice that these are opposite of what is in there. You have x minus 3, which means it's going to be a positive 3, and x minus 1, which means you get a positive 1. And 16, take the square root of that, the radius is 4. So then we just plot it at 3, 1, and then you count 4 away from the origin, away from the center, and it will give you your circle. If you take the equation of a circle in standard form, for example, remember the center at hk with h minus x minus h and y minus k. And since the x is plus something and not minus something, x plus 2, it can be written as x minus a negative 2. So again, they're just telling you here that you're going to take the opposite number of what is are in the parentheses. You can find the center and radius easily. The center is at negative 2, 4, and the radius is at 2. So that's where those numbers are coming from. Remember, r squared is 4, so r is equal to 2. But what if it was not in standard form, but multiplied out? In other words, what if somebody had FOILed it out and it looked like this? That looks pretty messy. Moving everything to one side in descending order and combining like terms, we have, notice how our 4, the 16, and then we would do a minus 4 here, and then put it over to the other side. And so our 4s would cancel, and we would get a 16 as the only number left, okay? Notice how you put, if you put it in descending order, you get x squared plus y squared plus 4x minus 8y plus 16 all equals 0. If we'd have started with it like this, we'd have to complete the square on both the x's and y's to get the standard form. So notice that we group the x terms together and place a blank out here to complete the square. We group the y terms together and a place to complete the square, and then we move the number to the other side. And remember, you have to do that by subtracting 16 from both sides. Now we're going to complete the square of both sides. 4 divided by 2 is equal to 2. And then you have to square that. That's why they're called completing the squared, and you get 4. Notice we place a 4 here, but we also have to place a 4 on the other side. So whatever you add to one side, you must add to the other side. Here, we took a -8, divided it by 2, and that would have given us a -4. And then the -4 squared gives us 16, and so we add a 16 to, again, both sides. Notice how the 16s are going to cancel, okay? So notice that when we divided by the 2's, this number here, the 2, is actually the same 2 that you're going to place in there. And notice the -4 is then placed with the y. Okay, so if you don't want to really factor those, the x squared plus 4x plus 4, as soon as you divide your middle term by 2, that's actually the number you need to write it into the factored form and getting it back into standard form. And again, notice how the 16s cancel, so the r is just r squared is equal to 4. Now let's work some examples. Find an equation of the circle with a center at 0, 0 and a radius 7. Let's sub in the center and radius values in the standard form. So we're going to place a 0 for the h, a 0 for the k, and then 7 for the r. So notice we get x squared plus y squared is equal to 49. Find an equation of the circle with a center at 0, 0 that passes through the point -1, -4. Since the center is at 0, 0, we have this equation here. X squared plus y squared is going to equal r. Now we have to find what is our r squared. So we're going to plug in our x and y value. So our x value is going to be -1. The y value will be -4. We're going to square those, and we get 1 plus 16, which is equal to 17. So r squared is 17. And subbing this in, we have x squared plus y squared equals 17. Find an equation of the circle that will have a center at -2, 5, and a radius of 6. What is this going to look like? Okay, subbing in the values in standard form, we have, notice how the -2 comes in and the 5 comes in. And because we have two negatives here, these two negatives are going to become a positive, and the 6 is going to be squared for 36. Find an equation of the circle with the center at 8, 2 and passes through the point 8, 0. Subbing the center in the values in standard form, this is what we have. Okay. In order to find our r, we're going to have to take the point 8, 0, and put in our x and y values for that. All right. So 8 minus 8 is 0, but 0 minus 2 squared is going to give us 4. Okay. Once we have the r squared, then we can go back to this part and then just put in the r squared. Identify the center, radius, and sketch the graph. We have 9x squared plus 9y squared equals 64. This is a problem because our x and y term's not alone. To get into standard form, we don't want coefficients, so we're going to divide everything by 9. And then we get x squared plus y squared equals 64 over 9. Remember to square root this to get the radius. So the center is at 0, 0, and the radius is 8, 3. So we can graph that. Identify the center and radius and sketch the graph. What is our center? What is our radius? Okay, remember the center values end up being the opposite sign of what is with the x and y, and right-hand side is the radius squared. So the center is -4, 3, and the radius is 5. Find the center and radius of the circle. What operation are we going to have to perform? That's right, we're going to have to complete the square on both the x's and y's to get it into standard form. So we're going to group the x terms and place to complete the square. We're going to group the y terms in a place to complete the square. And then we're going to move the constant to the other side. Notice 6 divided by 2 is going to give you a 3. Notice negative 4y divided by 2 is going to give us a negative 2. Remember, we have to square these, so that's where the 9 comes from, and we're going to square this, and that's where the 4 comes from. Remember, we write these values on both sides of the equation. Okay, we're going to write the factored form in standard. Notice you have x plus 3, so that 3 went right there. You have x minus 2, so the minus 2 went right there. And 9 plus 4 plus 3 is 16. So the center is at negative 3, 2, and the radius is at 4. Thank you for your participation. The end.